If you asked me when I was in college how much I liked it, I probably would have told you that I hated it because I had a very negative attitude back then and I was too fixated on what I didn't have and how different I wished my life could be back then. But if you ask me now, I'll tell you something very different. I'll tell you that I regret how I behaved back then, and I regret having a negative attitude, and that I wish I had taken advantage of those opportunities that I had to make friends and to have fun. And it was through experiences like that and other ones where I either failed to appreciate something I had or somebody failed to appreciate me that I really realized the importance of appreciating both the things and the people that we have in our lives. Now, there are a number of reasons why this is so important, and I just kind of touched on one of them, which is that if you don't appreciate what you have, then you end up taking it for granted and only appreciating what you have until you don't have it anymore. But also, you're just generally more happy if you can remind yourself of what you do have going for you instead of losing sight of that. It's also more cost-friendly because you're not just always looking for the next best thing and spending resources to acquire it and then just looking for the next best thing after that and perpetually being unhappy. And you also have to consider the effect that you're having on other people. Because if somebody does something nice for you and you don't appreciate them, then you might get away with it one time, but if you keep doing that, then eventually they're going to stop treating you nicely and being in favor of you. And instead, they're going to become antagonistic towards you, and then you'll realize how wrong you really were. And it also damages your credibility, because if you're never satisfied with what you have and you're always asking for more, then eventually whenever you ask for something, it can't be taken seriously because people will look at it and say, it's not that this person actually has a good reason for why they're asking for what they want. It's just instead that they're greedy and they will never be satisfied and they'll never stop asking for more. So now that we understand the importance of appreciation, I think it's just as important to take a look at how to actually practice that. Because I think many of us don't have a comprehensive understanding of that. Because if we did, then we wouldn't fail to appreciate so much of what we have going for us. And so the first thing you've got to do is actually put conscious effort into recognizing what you have going for you, the positive things in your life, rather than just fixating on the negative all the time. Because by nature, we as human beings are pessimistic. We're always going to notice the negative. So you kind of have to gently nudge yourself in the right direction. So I occasionally still find myself complaining about one or two things here and there every now and then. But I remind myself at that same time what I have going for me. I have a job, I live in a great area, I have a roof over my head and a place to live, and all those things. So you've got to do the same thing, and that's going to help you value those things a lot more. Now, you also have to take into account what you don't see. The amount of effort that goes on behind the scenes to deliver an end product to you that you're not going to be aware of. So it's very easy to not appreciate something because you didn't see all that stuff happen. But you've got to understand that a lot of the times people won't tell you the amount of work that they did for you. And it's kind of ironic how that works. The people that ask for the least amount of credit are the ones that deserve the most, and incidentally are the ones that get the least. So I think a great example of this is the country that we live in. So America is a great place to live because of the rights and privileges and freedoms that we have, and it took a lot of work to get us to this point. Many wars were fought, many lives were lost, and a lot of grueling hard work went into bringing our society and building our society to the point at which it is now. But still, people fail to appreciate that, and they find things to complain about because they were just kind of born into that way of life. And they didn't see all the effort that it took to get us here. So they just kind of assume it never happened. But of course, that's not true. So in those cases, it's your responsibility to put a conscious effort into opening your eyes and seeing beyond what's immediately evident to you. Next, it's also important to recognize inaction just as much as it is to recognize action. Because inaction is harder to notice. There's not really any outward indicator that someone's not doing something. But just remember that if somebody did something you didn't like, then you'd be the first person to stand up and say, hey, I don't like that, so please don't do that again. So if people listen to you, or if they don't do those things you don't want them to do without even having to be asked, you have to give them credit for that, because if you don't, then there's no incentive to keep that up. So I think some examples of this would be exercising restraint over asking you personal questions or getting angry with you or something like that. So if you spend an extended period of time with somebody who never does any of those things that you don't want them to do, then don't forget to stop every now and again and express a little bit of appreciation towards them for doing those things, or for not doing them, rather. Now, another important component of appreciation is to compare whatever you're not happy with to a situation that could be so much worse. And then you'll realize just how good you have it and how much you should be appreciating the things you're actually complaining about. So the military was one of those experiences that really helped me put every problem that I ever faced after that into perspective and realize how good a normal life really is in comparison to that. So if ever I experience a mild annoyance like a holdup or a delay at the airport, or if I have to work a few hours late one day, then I always remind myself that so long as I'm not sleeping outside in the middle of winter, freezing to death and looking forward to another week of malnourishment and manual labor, then I think I'm going to be okay. And the last ingredient of appreciation, at least that I'm going to cover in this video, is the importance of self-reflection. So if ever you're going to ask something of somebody else, much less demand it, you got to stop and ask yourself a few questions first. Are you really deserving of that? Do you ask for a lot to begin with? Are you willing to provide in return whatever you expect from somebody else? Or do you have double standards, which I've talked about at length before? And most importantly, have you already given the other person credit for the things that they have done for you in the past, instead of just jumping to fixating on the negatives or the deficiencies? Because if you can't answer that question correctly, or any of the other ones, then you're not really in any position to be asking for more for yourself. So take a second to appreciate both the people and things that you have in your life if you haven't already, and see if that changes your mind for the better, because it certainly did for me. So I hope this helps. I hope this was insightful for you. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.